Hello, I'm Clive Clark and we're at the Hideaway Golf Club in La Quinta, California. 36 holes here, one designed by Pete Dye and the other designed by myself. In the background over here you can see the 9th green on the course I designed. We tried to make this course very colourful. It's a desert golf course. We have great weather most of the year. A little hot in the summer, admittedly, but things really grow and they grow fast. So we've incorporated a lot of desert scape and waterfalls, the verbena and many other coloured plants that really help to make a golf course more than just a golf course. It becomes an experience. We have a very fine housing estate on here. It's a private golf course, and the homes are of significant size. They're generally around the 4,000 to 6,000 square foot area, and they're all done by, they're custom made, so many of the great California architects have designed these. The golf course I've kept very playable. The driving areas are pretty large. Jerry Tassitano, the superintendent, keeps this place in magnificent condition. And we really, I designed this golf course with the idea of it being fun to play. It wasn't going to be the Punisher, it was going to be a fun golf course, and people could enjoy the experience, not only of the golf, but of the landscape, the colour, and of course the glorious weather that we get here in Southern California. I've also designed two other 18-hole golf courses in the valley. Fantasy Springs, which is it's a casino out in Indio, and that's a slightly more rugged golf course. It fits into the natural terrain out there, and that particular course I made a little bit easier. I withdrew some of the bunkers from the greens because you get a lot of snowbirds playing there who don't get the opportunity to play very much golf during the winter, so perhaps their form isn't quite as good as the members of private country clubs. So I took the bunkers away from the greens a little bit to give them better access, and you don't have to be quite as precise, but it's a very good golf course. It plays about 6,800 off the back, which is probably more than enough for general golfers. The Pro Tour, obviously, you'd need to have a longer golf course, but it's not designed for the Pro Tour, it's designed for the guests of the casino and the visitors. Also, I designed Indian Wells at the Indian Wells Resort, which is a very picturesque golf course. Again, there's a lot of water, waterfalls, moving water, and it was an existing course which we completely rebuilt. So it does have a lot of very nice natural aged trees, which is nice to find in the desert. Although things grow quickly, if you start from scratch, my course here, for instance, had no trees at all. It was devoid of trees. It was just flat desert. But as I say, trees grow pretty quickly here, and you're putting in fairly established palm trees, and the other acacias and various brands of trees fit in very well. They're natural to the desert. We did actually on Hideaway bring in some trees from the San Diego area, some stone pine, and surprisingly pine does pretty well in the desert. We get round December, January, some frosty days where the temperature can be perhaps as low as 20 degrees or so. Just for a few mornings, and then in the summer it can get up to 120 degrees plus, so you have to have pretty hardy material to stand those two extremes, but they work very well. And as you can see over here, the 9th green with the annual colours, the red flowers, they're annuals, they're planted every year, and this whole place is really a jolly nice place to be. Over at Indian Wells, when the course opened up, things grow in very quickly here in the valley. We started construction in January, and by the end of November, Thanksgiving, we had 2 consecutive skins games played there with top players over Thanksgiving weekend, which was a lot of fun. We had Phil Mickelson, Freddie Couples, and a number of other well-known pros. and that was televised by ESPN on both days. But it just goes to show, from putting a shovel in the ground where you have great weather and a base of sand and you have a good budget, you can actually get a golf course open from putting a spade in the ground, say in January, and it can be open in November, which is quite extraordinary. It doesn't happen in many places in the world. We've also been doing some remodel at Desert Horizon, which is in Indian Wells. It's a course that was first developed in the early 80s, and we've renovated the green complexes, so they've got all new green complexes, including the bunkers and the fairway bunkers, and we've added quite a lot of colourful landscape. That was achieved this last summer and opened on the 12th of November, and I've been down there, and I'm happy to say the members have taken to it like a duck to water, and they're very enthusiastic, and we're going to do the back nine this coming summer, so that will be ready, and the whole 18-hole golf course will be complete by this coming November. So the members are looking forward to that. Just a word or two about England and Great Britain. There are a lot of very fine courses over there if you get a chance to travel. England has some well-known courses in the London area, like Sunningdale Golf Club, Wentworth, Walton Heath, Woburn, and quite a number of others. It's rich in golf, and out in the Surrey area you get the Sandbelt, which is great because it's more like the courses are like inland links, but surrounded by pine trees and forest, which is a very attractive setting. I started playing golf when I was 12 years old, and I got so keen that in the summer and Easter holidays I used to play 3 rounds every day and practice in between. I think it was a great relief to my parents that they could drop me off somewhere safe and pick me up at about 6 o'clock at night. It was kind of nursery school really, but it was a golf course, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I started in Yorkshire, a golf course called Scarborough North Cliff. Scarborough is a seaside resort on the northeast coast of England, and as I say, I got very keen on golf and I progressed, and eventually I got to play good amateur golf, and I became one of the 2 best amateurs in Great Britain and played in the Walker Cup in Baltimore, Maryland, which was a great thrill because it was the first time I'd been to America, and I just turned 20 at that stage. Teams then were much older. I remember the American team had 5 players over 40. Today you'd be lucky to find anybody over 23 playing in the Walker Cup. Things change, but I then turned pro and had a pretty successful career. I won 5 European Tour events and had 21 top 3s. Finished 3rd in the Open Championship, played with Jack Nicklaus in the last day, which was a great thrill, and played in the Ryder Cup, which is, I consider, a tremendous achievement. It's very gratifying to make a Ryder Cup team. That was in Muirfield, Scotland, we played. And quite frankly, if you hadn't have had Nicklaus and Palmer and Casper and Trevino and Weiskopf and Chichi in the team, you would never have beaten us. It would have never happened. Then I got into, well, I was the playing pro at Sunningdale Golf Club for 9 years, which is near London, and then I took over from Arthur Lees, who retired at the ripe old age of 70, and I became the head pro there, but they were also happy for me to still continue playing in a number of tournaments. But then BBC television came along, and so I figured, well, maybe television's a better event than playing, because at least in television you know you're going to be there on Sunday. When you play, you don't always know you're going to be there on Sunday. So I worked for BBC for 18 years. Peter Alliss and I had a company in design which ran for a number of years till I moved over to the States to live permanently. We did 20 golf courses altogether, and Peter, a lot of fun to work with. You'll be familiar with Peter from TV. He's one of the greatest commentators in the world, no doubt about that. He's also a very fine after-dinner speaker. If you happen to go to one of those dinners where he's speaking, you'll thoroughly enjoy his wit and humour. But we had a great time, and these courses happened pretty quickly. We were just on a wave of where golf was expanding within the UK. And of the 20 courses we did, they're not high budget golf courses. You get more money in America in terms of budget to construct a golf course. But they turned out very well. Purford, which is fairly near London, was a very successful course, and it was built on gravel. Below the topsoil was gravel, and the water level was very high, so consequently we got very inexpensive lakes, inexpensive to build, because we didn't have to line them. You dug a hole and there was the water, which doesn't apply out here in the desert, where you've got to put plastic liner in every single lake, otherwise the water disappears pretty quickly. So Purford had quite a lot of water on it, and it was a flat site, so we could pretty much place the lakes where we wanted, and the excavation from the lakes formed the mounds, so it worked out very well in terms of it was an efficient construction. Other courses which we did, Brocket Hall up in just north of London near Hatfield. We worked with Lord Brocket on that, who had this fine hall with 44 bedrooms, and the butlers dressed in tails, very, very smart. And unfortunately, Lord Brocket lost his way a little bit. He had a fine collection of Ferraris, and I don't know whether he got short of the old pounds, but one or two of them disappeared. And unfortunately, Lord Brocket went to jail, which was quite a turn-up for the books. And I felt badly for him, because I was living in America, and he was such a good host. He was like a young Roger Moore, handsome-looking man with a great wit and very welcoming and endless charm. So I had a very good time over there with Peter, and going to Brocket Hall and doing our work and having fine lunches with Lord Brocket. And so I found out which jail in England he was resident at, and I dropped him a note. And about 3 weeks later I got a reply, a 3-page handwritten reply, which started out, "My dear Clive, I'm sorry for the delay in replying, but I couldn't find a secretary slim enough to slip between the bars." When I moved with my wife Linda to America about 22 years ago, the first commission that I got was in Maine, which is quite a long way from California when you come to think of it. It's pretty much as easy to get to Maine from London as it is from California, but it was wonderful to get a start at Belgrade Lakes, and Harold Alphont, who was the owner of Dexter Shoes for many, many, many years, was involved, and he'd sold his company out, and he put some money into this venture, which was a glorious forest. We had 240 acres, but underneath the trees were huge boulders, and this was an exciting prospect, because firstly, they're going to look very nice when they're clustered and strewn out of the trees. It really has become a gorgeous effect. The downside is you have to move them, and you move boulders one at a time. They are big and they are heavy, and you load them to a dumper truck, and off they go, and they get placed, as I say, one at a time. That course has done particularly well. I think the boulders have been very instrumental in catching attention, because there are fields of them down the sides of the semi-rough, and Belgrade Lakes got voted by both Golf Digest and Golf Magazine as #1 golf course in state, which was a very nice start to my golf career designing in America. I also did Lake Winnipesaukee, which when it came on the market, it's a private club in New Hampshire. Again, a similar site, not so much the boulders, but certainly through a gorgeous forest, and that course immediately sprang to #2 in state, and since then has been voted #1, which is very gratifying. It was owned, or is owned, by a private gentleman, Mr. Bernard Shue, who has lived in Boston for about 30 odd years, but he originates from China, very nice gentleman, and that was quite an experience doing that golf course, and to get a site, as with Belgrade Lakes, that is right through a major forest, and get the permitting to do it is really quite something. So living in America has been a great experience for me, and I guess as a designer, pretty much whoever you are, whether you're Tom Weiskopf or Jack Nicklaus, you learn as you go along. It's a great learning experience. I've done some 33 golf courses now, and you still learn, and that's really what inspires and keeps it an interesting profession to be in, because I'm sure there are many armchair architects who would just love to be out there designing golf courses, but when you get down to the nitty-gritty and you have to draw all the plans and grading plans and figure out topos and deal with various aspects of construction, it's not quite as easy as it first looks from the armchair. Over in Scotland, I'm on the point of designing a new golf course which is close to St Andrews. It's about 17 minutes away, and it's a genuine links golf course with 1.5 miles of beach and water. It looks right over the estuary of the Firth of Forth towards Muirfield. There's a stretch of about 12 miles of water. We have a 325 acres to get 18 core holes on, which is you could, well spread out. You could probably get 2 golf courses fairly comfortably on that size of site. Links golf course, for those of you who are familiar with the name but don't know a great deal about it, are rare animals indeed. There are roughly 34,000 golf courses in the entire world, and if you're looking at genuine links golf courses, there are only about 250. So that's less than 1% of golf courses that exist in the world. Of those 250, probably around 40 are 5-star and famous, like the old course at St Andrews and Turnberry and Muirfield, and a number of others. Some new courses have gone in on the Scottish coast, but not that many. Trump has a new course up by Aberdeen. He also owns Turnberry now. Our course will be a championship course. It'll be a high-end golf course. As I say, we're about a 16-minute drive from St Andrews, and a lot of the courses in Great Britain where you see the Open Championship being played are older golf courses. Most of them are at least 100 years or more old. Design and the attitude of players, I think, has changed. They're delightful courses like Royal St George's and Royal Lytham, Royal Birkdale. What to me they don't seem to offer, fine as they are and well respected as they are, there's not a great deal of risk and reward types of holes on those courses, and that's something on this new course I'm concentrating on, and there'll be probably 5 or 6 holes that we design that will have a definite risk and reward, or it might have 2 fairways, or you might play on the safe side but you get a longer shot in, go down the narrower fairway, you have a much more difficult drive, but if you can hit it straight you get a good reward. We've got the 17th hole there where you play over a wonderful old Scottish wall which is a drivable par 4, and you pay your money and you take your chance, and if you want to, you choose your own poison. But short par 4s are very interesting. As a designer, they're often hard to get into a golf course because generally today it's desirable to have a golf course that off the back tees is at least 7,000 yards, and if you're looking to have a professional event, which we may well look towards as we get further established in Scotland, today you probably need a golf course with some back tees in there just for the pros, which will stretch it out to probably 7,400 or 500 yards. They just hit the ball so far today, it's quite incredible. So that's our plan over there. As I say, we've got a gorgeous sandy links site with sand dunes, and the clubhouse will sit on this back plateau, which is nearly 100 feet above sea level, so there'll be marvellous views right across the golf course and out over the Firth of Forth looking towards Muirfield. So we're very excited about that, We'd like it all to happen by magic and it'll be open tomorrow morning. Unfortunately it won't, but we have the construction, the grow-in to do before we get players on the course, so we may be as much as 3 years out. But you know, courses stay around for a long time, and if you look at the old course at St Andrews, that's been there for 600 years. So perhaps a few weeks or even a year or two isn't too much to ask.